I'm joined now by David Cote, who is one of the business leaders in the audience today, listening to Chinese President Hu Jintao. As always, thank you for the time. Appreciate it. What did you take away from what you heard from President Hu?
Oh, I thought it was a great speech. I mean, all of these things, if you're going to start to make progress, you have to start with the right words. Some people can minimize that, but if you can't even get agreement on the right words, you're never going to get into getting anything done. And I thought the words were terrific. And there were some good messages in there, too. I mean, one of my favorites, of course, always is that economics is not a zero-sum game. You know, your gain is not my loss and vice versa. We both benefit. The need to work together. The recognition what we're trying to do is improve standard of living for everybody. I thought those were all very good messages.
You have substantial operations in China right now, significant investment there right now.
Yeah.
What changes for you, do you think, as a result of this visit here? Does anything change in the short term?
I don't know about in the short term, because things already work pretty well for us. As I think I said earlier, we've got 11,000 people there, over $1.5 billion in sales. We're growing 20% a year and have been for 7 or 8 years now. So that part's all good. But it's going to be important for both our countries to work together. The U.S. and China are going to be the biggest economies in the world. And when you take a look at the number of people in China, if they just keep growing at 8% and we keep growing at 3% on average, in 25 years they're the biggest economy in the world. You can't ignore it. And you always get this question, are they a partner, are they a competitor, are they a customer, are they a supplier? And of course the answer is yes. You need kind of a nuanced, broad-based, thoughtful approach to our relationship with them. And I'm very hopeful that this visit took one more step to having that broader, more nuanced relationship.
There's been a suggestion made that the business community has been pleased to have the opportunity to do business in China, the U.S. business community, for some time. But now we're at a different stage where U.S. business leaders are pushing for the next step, to have more market access, to get more of those government contracts that right now might be going strictly to Chinese firms. Are you part of that community? Is it time for the U.S. business community, now that they've been in China for a while, to push further?
Well, personally, I think more openness on both sides is helpful. So I like the idea of American businesses doing more in China. But I'll give you an example. Is we should be allowing Chinese companies to acquire U.S. companies. Now, that is anathema to some people, but I like the idea of having voices in Beijing that say, hey, what are you doing? I have a lot of money over there. I think that's a nice way of kind of building the relationship and moderating maybe some of the hotheads that you run into on both sides.
And we've got President Hu visiting a Chinese-owned auto parts plant outside Chicago to sort of highlight that Chinese investment. But you know that's a political hot potato, isn't it? We remember what happened with the Japanese in the 1980s.
Well, people go crazy over stuff that I don't think makes a lot of sense sometimes. And you use the Japanese example. I don't know if you remember this, but when the Japanese bought Rockefeller Center, and people went crazy, the press went crazy, how bad this was, the Japanese buying Rockefeller Center, you have to think about it a little bit and go, well, what are they going to do with it? Take it back to Japan? You know, I looked at it, we had the real estate and the money. We can get really silly sometimes in how we think about some of this. Anything that we do that builds the relationship, builds the economic basis of a commercial relationship is good for both, because it goes back to exactly what President Hu was saying. It's not a zero-sum game. Our gain is not their loss, and vice versa.
What about those who would argue, listen, it is still a question of currency, this trade deficit. We are exporting American jobs to China right now, and until that changes, this relationship is going to continue to be tense.
Well, when it comes to the currency, I would say that when an economy gets to be that big, at some point you have to have free flow of currency. It should be a free market. That I agree with. I would not say it's the #1 item that we need to be concerned about. And one of the things I'd like to see change about the conversation in the U.S. is that we stop always complaining about what could be unfair on the other side and instead say we need to compete. We can't forget that we got to where we are by being very good competitors. And one of my favorite examples is number of engineers. You look at the U.S. last year, we graduated about 450,000 engineers. China graduated about 900,000. and that's with only a third as many college-eligible kids going to school on a percent of population. So when they get to that same percent, it'll be 3 million engineers a year versus our 450. We'd rather graduate lawyers, English majors, poli-sci, history. We need more engineers if we're going to compete, and we need to start thinking that way. We need like a Sputnik-type program to kind of galvanize everybody to say we need to compete again.
All right. David Cote, as always, appreciate it.